तो गाइज ये वाली वीडियो है गाइज, वेलकम बैक टू अनदर वीडियो गाइज। ये वाली वीडियो में हम लोग देखने वाले हैं, रिएक्ट करने वाले हैं, रिव्यू या फिर रिव्यू रिएक्ट क्या है जो भी है, हम वीडियो बना रहे हैं इस टॉपिक के कि ये वाली वीडियो में हम लोग क्या होने वाला है ना, एनिमल जब आप पे अटैक करते हैं तो वो जो मूवमेंट है वो कितना स्कैरी हो सकता है, उसके ऊपर हम लोग रिएक्ट करने वाले हैं। सो लेट्स रिएक्ट द वीडियो।
The following video features some of the most brutal animal attacks on record. These true stories include the gruesome story of a man who was found half-eaten by 7 Nile monitor lizards, the story of another lion who consumed 6 people in the span of 2 months, and much more. You're watching what are among the most brutal animal attacks on record.
तेरी शक्ल कितनी गंदी बनाया तूने।
In many parts of the world, wild and potentially dangerous animals are held in captivity and used as drawing cards for tourism. On the surface, these arrangements seem harmless, especially when the animals are cared for and visitors are able to learn about them at close range. But more often than not, wild animals give in to their natural instincts, and in these primal moments, we witness what happens when man tries to tame the innately untamable. This episode takes us to a game reserve in South Africa near the small town of Cullinan, where a man was mauled to death by the lions that he raised ever since they were cubs. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're new. You're watching When Animals Attack. The Mahala View Lodge is nestled in the Conservancy just 25 miles from the capital, in the Gauteng province. The lodge was owned by Leon van Biljon, who lived on site with his family. Among the inhabitants of the privately owned Bushveld escape were 3 captive lions named...
बेसिकली वो क्या बता रहा है, जिसको ज़्यादा इंग्लिश नहीं आती, एक आदमी था, उसने शेर पाले हुए थे। अब उसने क्यों पाले थे? क्योंकि उसका दिमाग खराब था, क्योंकि शेर पालने नहीं जाते। आपको पालना है, कुत्ता पालो, बिल्ली पालो, गलत फैमिली मत पालो। उसने गलत फैमिली पाल ली, उसने पाल ली। सो लेट्स सी,
उसने बहुत ज़्यादा वाली गलत फैमिली पाल ली।
अभी होंगे ना, उसकी फैमिली भी दूर हो जाएगी।
Rambo, Katrine, and Nikita, who all stayed in enclosures on the property. The conservancy in which the lodge is located borders the Dinokeng Game Reserve, a 74,000-acre park that attracts many visitors to the area to view the Big Five, plains game, as well as an array of other animals that roam the savanna grasslands in this high-felt Shangri-La. In addition to its idyllic accommodations, game drives, and conference facilities, the lodge also offers exclusive lion lectures and feedings. Van Biljon became known as the Lion Man, and photographs would reveal the close and interactive relationship he shared with his lions. It was clear that there was little fear between them, as the boundary between man and beast seemingly dissolved. According to South African law, indigenous wild animals like lions can be kept for exhibition purposes provided the owner has a valid permit. Interestingly, the permit holder does not need to be a certified or trained wildlife expert. This means that anyone who has the funds to house a lion, satisfy its basic living requirements, and secure the necessary permit is legally able to own one of the most feared predators on the planet. Crowned the king of the jungle, the mighty lion is ironically no stranger to human domination. In fact, for centuries, people have tried to tame and domesticate this iconic member of the cat family, from Middle Eastern sheikhs and royals to circus performers and big cat enthusiasts. In South Africa,
उसने अभी बताया कि शेख लोग शेर पालते हैं, तो हम भी पाल सकते हैं, उसमें कोई ज़्यादा बड़ी बात नहीं है। आपको बस 300-400 करोड़ रुपए चाहिए आपके अकाउंट में, और फिर आप भी पाल पाएंगे एक शेर।
गरीबों
इसलिए मैं बोलता हूँ पैसा कमाओ, मौज काटो। मैं नहीं बोलता, वो कोई बोलता है
एंड्रू टेट।
हाँ, एंड्रू टेट वही
एंड्रू नहीं, बॉटम जी बोलते हैं।
बॉटम जी,
नॉट टॉप जी, इट्स बॉटम जी ऑलवेज।
लेट्स कंटिन्यू द वीडियो।
Most captive lions live in zoos, wildlife parks, and even sanctuaries, where the primary business is usually tourism. Visitors to these facilities are treated to close interactions and often marvel at the level of domestication exhibited by the lions. And while seemingly successful,
इस पे शॉर्ट का वीडियो बनाऊंगा मैं, ऐसा वो ये ऊपर ये डालूंगा, नीचे अपने दोनों को वीडियो और लिखूंगा गर्लफ्रेंड, ही माइट बी प्रोबेबली चीटिंग ऑन मी एट 2 AM. Success.
To the layman, animal behavior experts understand that wild animals can never truly be tamed. And moreover, keeping wild animals in captivity often leads us to negative ecological impact, not to mention the ethical considerations for essentially caging an animal that is meant to roam territories of up to 150 square miles. And another factor that has recently grown in relevance is that contact between wild animals and humans may facilitate spread of zoonotic diseases, and we all now know how that can turn out. So while disease is not a factor in this story, it nevertheless ends in tragedy. The Biljon family acquired the property in 1985 and built the lodge from the ground up, which they named Mahala View Lodge. Somewhat controversially, mahala is the Zulu word for something that has been obtained without payment or effort. Van Biljon's 2 daughters would grow up at the lodge, and in 2006, he acquired 4 lion cubs, 2 males and 2 females. One of the males was sold shortly after being acquired, and the 3 remaining cubs would be raised on the property, even sleeping with their owners. The lions would eventually grow to become special attractions at the lodge, drawing in visitors which included school groups. Van Biljon would teach the children and other guests about lions and their relationship with God. On one fateful August afternoon, towards the end of the South African winter in 2019, a 70-year-old Van Biljon entered the enclosure of the lions he called his children. He had grown used to being inside the enclosure with them, feeling confident in the bond that they had formed over the 30 years that the lions had been under his care. As Van Biljon turned his back to mend a fence that was broken, one of the lions pounced on his back, digging its sharp claws into his shoulders and piercing its teeth into the back of his neck. Emergency services were alerted, as well as neighboring staff and landowners who rushed to the lodge to offer assistance. 2 of the lions had already been shot by the time the ambulance arrived, but the paramedics could not access the enclosure until all 3 lions were killed. By the time they got to Van Biljon, he was covered in blood and had already succumbed to his injuries. And in just a moment, an instant that mirrored many others across the country, the captor became the victim. The lodge would go on to confirm the death of the Lion Man on its Facebook page that read, "Great loss for everyone."
वीडियो का एक कंक्लूजन है, आपको पता है ये जो स्टोरी थी ना, उसका एक कंक्लूजन था कि शेरों पे भरोसा नहीं करते। और मेरा एक दोस्त है, उसने मुझे एक स्टोरी कही थी कि मैं एक पठान हूँ, मेरे बाप के हम 5 शेर हैं, एक मर भी गया तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, क्योंकि बाकी के 4 आपको काट के रख देंगे।
ये आपको ज़िंदगी में कुछ एडवाइस नहीं देंगे मैथ्स की तरह।
क्या
मैथ्स कुछ काम में आया तेरी ज़िंदगी?
नहीं, मेरी ज़िंदगी में मैथ्स भी कुछ काम नहीं आया।
ये सलाह भी कुछ काम में नहीं आएंगी,
ये भी कुछ काम नहीं आएंगी। सो हाँ, मैं एक चीज़ कहूँगा कि आप टाइम पास बोल के मेरी वीडियो देख लो।
तो वीडियो को एंड करते अभी यही थी।
हाँ, वीडियो को यही एंड करते हैं। सो आई वांटेड टू से थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वाचिंग। और बहुत सारे दिनों से ना वीडियोस नहीं आ रही थी, कि इसका रीज़न ये था कि आई वाज बिजी इन माय कॉलेज वर्क, और कॉलेज भी करना है मुझे और ये भी करना है। सो आई एम काइंड ऑफ एडजस्टिंग इट। और ये करने का पैशन आपको लग रहा होगा कि मतलब ये करने का रीज़न ये है कि मुझे पैशन है, वैशन है। नहीं, मुझे एक्चुअल में वरना खरीदनी है, मुझे एक्चुअल में वरना खरीदनी की है जेड ब्लैक। उसके लिए मैं इतनी मेहनत कर रहा हूँ गाइस।
ब्लैक चलती नहीं,
ब्लू भी चलेगी,
ब्लू डार्क ब्लू।
हाँ गाइस। नहीं, मुझे एक आल्टो खरीदनी की, उसके व्हील मॉडिफाई करूँगा।
ये कुछ भी बोल रहा है, ये ऐसा वैसा कुछ नहीं है गाइस। हमको खरीदने की एक वो वैगनार जो 33,000 हॉर्स पावर वाली गाड़ी खरीदने की हमको।
और उसके वो अलॉय डालूंगा, उसके अंदर इतना बड़ा बेस डालूंगा और गाने बजाऊंगा, और गड्डिया उच्ची है।
अरे वो
थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वाचिंग गाइस, बाय बाय।